bring in our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, sombrero and all. James, you're on vacation. You're not supposed to be working, but you haven't stopped working, and I have the text to prove it. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys? Hopefully this sounds okay. I didn't bring any major mic equipment with me or anything, but yeah, I figured I'd check in.
You sound better than Kenny did on the game this morning, so you're fine. You well, you broke a little bit of news last night. The couple is talking again.
Yeah. I think this is a big deal. Up until even yesterday, we had heard that the Kings and Harrison Barnes camp hadn't talked in really like 3 weeks, and now they're talking again. I don't know if that means that the Kings have exhausted a few other options and a few other plans that they may have had. But they certainly at this point, they probably have to have a heart-to-heart with themselves and know that Harrison Barnes is still a really good player. He still makes them a better team. He's part of the group that won 48 games last year. And if you don't have a much better option, he's a really good one, especially with all the intangibles that he brings to the table.
So, James, you've seen how these things play out and how it goes down. I mean, you don't talk to somebody for 2 to 3 weeks, and then you come back like, "Hey, how are you doing?
How you doing?"
How does that go for the Kings, for Harrison Barnes? Does everybody involved realize and understand, hey, it's business, or is there a little, the Harrison side is going to be like, oh, okay, I mean, we can talk, but it's going to cost you. I need $1 million just for this conversation, like I'm Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think the Kings have something that Harrison Barnes wants. And regardless of how this has played out, of how long it took them to come back to the table and have a negotiation, the fact is that the Kings are the location that he wants to be in. Northern California is a location that he wants to be in. He's put up roots here. His wife has a business in the Bay Area. They have family in the Bay Area. So I think that this is one of those things where if you consider everything, Harrison wanted to come back initially. Now, whether that means that this deal gets done or not, we have no idea. Like I always caution people, and I cautioned people before I broke the Harrison Barnes news last night. Like, look, like don't fall in love with any one singular idea, any one singular player, because these things change very, very quickly. And you just kind of, be a yo-yo and kind of balance and stay with it and figure out where it's going to go, where the wind is blowing. We still have 2 days until free agency opens up, and we're acting like everything's a done deal. And I think that that's one way that we're kind of just like living and breathing the free agency window even before it starts and it gets chaotic.
Yeah, James, we talked about Kyle Kuzma yesterday for 2.5 hours. The deal that we felt, or we heard they were relatively close to a deal prior to a brief separation a couple of weeks ago. Like are talks? Do you think talks are just picking up where they left off? Are they working through different scenarios? Like, what do you think is happening with these two groups right now?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the number that we heard that was floated around, a couple of weeks ago was that Barnes's camp was looking for somewhere around $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time believing that the Kings are going to go that high, and that's not because they don't believe in Harrison Barnes. It's because he's 31. They know the clock is ticking, just like everyone else does. And what you don't want to do is sign a long-term deal with a player who starts to decline in sort of his play and get yourself locked into a contract that you can't move if you have to down the road. And so I would be surprised if that's the number, although I keep hearing that number in different places. But I would still be surprised because, look, the Kings didn't clear out all this cap space, didn't basically, trade away the 24th pick and Rashawn Holmes just to go out and re-sign Harrison Barnes and give an extension to Domantas Sabonis. They had higher aspirations here, which is why we've heard them attached to just about every name in the book, including Kyle Kuzma, including Bradley Beal, and you name it, they've been attached to it. I think at this point, there is a very good chance that the Kings are also looking at like 2 or 3 really, really solid rotational ads in addition to Harrison Barnes. Now, I don't know that for sure, and we don't have names to attach that, but there are still a lot of names that we don't know where they're going at all. You know, the Bruce Browns of the world, the Mason Plumleys of the world, you know, guys that can actually not just look fancy on the ledger, but you know, that actually make an impact when it comes to winning. And that's what they're really looking for, is something to help this team win.
So, James, I was of the belief, and I think a lot of people are of the belief, the Kings made that move on draft day for a specific reason. And I thought it was not to re-sign Harrison Barnes. I think the Sabonis renegotiate and extend was one of the reasons. But I also thought it was to go out there and get a free agent or be a player in the trade market for somebody with a bigger salary. Is there a possibility that they felt that was the best time to make that move and the only time to make that move? And I say that because maybe Rashawn Holmes' contract isn't as appealing as we may think it is, with 2 years left on the deal. And they looked at that situation where, hey, it's draft night. Dallas is desperate to clear cap space themselves and have these draft picks. Let's strike right now, because if we wait to do this during the season, or, you know, trying to get a player, it may not be as appealing to other people. Maybe that was the reason why they did the deal then, as opposed to saying, hey, we're trying to get bigger fish now.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I think they had conversations all around the league, and they gauged what was more valuable. You know, Rashawn Holmes in a trade to, you know, to act as a salary buffer, or you know, the 24th pick. And I think they probably came back to the answer with that, trading Holmes with the 24th pick, it doesn't just free up 12 million bucks this year, it frees up 12.9 next year. So it's actually, you know, you sold the 24th pick in the draft for 25 million bucks spread out over 2 years. So I mean, you can look at it a bunch of different ways, but for me, I think that this team is shopped really hard. They know exactly what the value was, and they realize that, you know, if they go out and they're offering up the 24th pick and Rashawn Holmes in a package that looks like this, they weren't getting the type of offers that, or the bites that they were hoping to get. And trading Holmes with that 24th pick, they now can offer, instead of a player with 2 years and 25 million, they can offer salary cap space that they didn't have before. So it not only frees you up for free agency, but it also frees you up for trades. And that's something that you just didn't have the option. It looked like, especially like if you would have retained Holmes, you would have had that on your books, like no free agency. It would have wiped your free agency down to, you know, 22, 23 million bucks, which basically is enough to bring back Barnes, maybe, and maybe give Sabonis an extension. Now you have all kinds of other options, and it costs you something. But I also will make the argument that I think they got a player at 34 that they probably could have looked at really hard at 24, and a first round talent that was in the second round, because this was a pretty deep draft, and some people made some moves ahead of them that, you know, were strange, and it pushed some players into the second round that maybe didn't need to go to the second round. So I think we haven't heard the end of this story, and I caution everybody, don't buy everything that you read. You know, like, it's my job to try to break news, but also to analyze the why that you would go out and you know, sign a guy like Kyle Kuzma if that's what you were going to do. And at the end of the day, you know, I liked the idea of Kyle Kuzma, and I talked myself into the idea of Kyle Kuzma, but it was always with the understanding that Kyle Kuzma hasn't signed on the dotted line. And the same thing about Kyle Kuzma, there's always been the problem with him, is that I just didn't think he would want to play in Sacramento, because that's not who he is. He loves the lifestyle.
There's no evidence Kings even talked to him. Like,
yeah,
it was just kind of thrown out there, and it was like, hey, let's make a show out of it. And
yeah,
it admittedly got a smidge bit out of hand.
yeah, and like, look, I think he is a perfect fit for the Sacramento Kings. I looked at his defensive numbers. I was like, holy cow, Kyle Kuzma was really good defensively last year. But I also looked at Harrison Barnes' numbers, and I thought, oh, okay, like, he was like we talked about it last year, he was one of the worst defensive players in the league last year, bottom 12%, something like that. This last year, he was much, much better. Like he was a very solid defender on a bad defensive team. And so, yeah, the Kings need more length. They need more athleticism. It's still the same thing we were talking about before. And I still have a really tough time looking at this roster and saying, okay, what are they really going to come back with Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, Trey Lyles, and add Sasha Vezenkov and really not address the biggest need that they have, which is length and athleticism at the 3 and the 4. And that to me would be shocking if they did, because even if you bring back Kessler Edwards, who has that length and athleticism we're talking about, that defensive acumen, he still isn't going to have an opportunity to play with these other 4 guys on the roster. There's still going to be a logjam in minutes. And so you still have to address these things. And, it's not like you can go out and just bring in a guy to back up Sabonis to solve everything, because Sabonis plays 35 minutes a game. So how is somebody going to solve everything in 13 minutes a game? And that's where we're at. We got the Kings need to keep dealing with all of these issues that they have and keep trying to increase the talent on the roster.
We're on a roller coaster of emotions right now, going from a variety of different players, and this team is talking to this Kings team's talking to this player, and this is talking to this guy. And so I'm going to ask you a question that everybody listening and everybody watching is going to answer for themselves. But I want your opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
They make this move at the draft to the 24th pick. Talk about all of the scenarios, all of what might be out there. Should Sacramento extend Domantas Sabonis? Lock him, have him under contract for a long time, re-sign Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles back, and we'll look for some moves at the end of the bench. Is that a disappointment?
I think it is. And that's not a disrespect on any of those guys. I think it is. Like, if this is what happens, this is how you come out of it. Like, you need one more, maybe 2 more rotational pieces. Players that can actually help your roster. I think that there's ways that you can sign Sabonis, which is a priority. And I don't get why people have any problems with that being a priority for the Kings. That's crazy. Like, if you can lock up a all-NBA center, long-term, 27 years old, 3-time All-Star, you can lock him up as long as possible. You do it the second that you can. And that, to me, you've already piled all these assets. You gave up now Holmes in the 24, you gave up Halliburton. It's like, okay. And he just delivered you to the 3rd seed in the Western Conference for a franchise that hadn't made the playoffs for 16 straight years. So I'm confused what you think that the give and take is here. This is an incredible NBA player. So yeah, I think that's big. I think that even the Harrison Barnes thing, like, look, Harrison Barnes is still a really good basketball player. We talked about this time and time again. He takes care of his body. He's the most upstanding citizen you're going to find. And he's still good, and he can still help your team. But you cleared out a bunch of space. You traded a 24th pick. This starts to look more and more like the Vlade Divac still if you don't actually get anything with this pick, with this money. And so whether, again, that's a guy like Bruce Brown or a guy like multiple players that can help you build something and fill some of the holes and make you a better defensive team, I do think it would be a slight disappointment.
Okay.
I didn't expect James to say that. I'm completely honest. I didn't think he would say that.
I disagree a little bit, and I'm not gonna, just put words in James' hands' mouth. He didn't say this, but it sounds like James and other people want the Kings to spend just to spend. Because but like if they did all that to put themselves in a position to get Kuzma, and Kuzma chose Houston, and maybe get OG and the asking price didn't come off of Keegan, and Jeremy Grant wants to go back to Port. Like if it takes, this, James, it takes 2 to tango. So if they put themselves in position to be able to do it, and it just wasn't able to happen, I don't think that's a disappointment or a failure on their part. Not saying you're saying it's a failure, but that, like, they put themselves in position to do everything they could. Now it's up to other people saying that they want to be a part of it. And the only way it comes out is like you did something is if you go just go sign somebody. Dylan Brooks. At least you can say you got something with the money. I don't think that would be the option. If you don't believe in Dylan Brooks or any of these other people, then you don't get them. You sign Harrison Barnes and maybe one other guy and leave it at that.
Yeah, Kenny, the key for me is always win more games, get better talent. You got to find a way to do it. You got to find a way to close one or two of these deals that, maybe you haven't been able to in the past. I mean, we should not, it's 2023. We should not be talking about the 1998 acquisition of Lottie Divac as the single greatest free agent signing in the history of Sacramento Kings. You just can't. And if you're the third seed in the West, you need to use that capital. You need to use the fact that you've got young stars, that you've got young up and coming players that are, doing big things as ways to go out there and get the players that you need. And I'm not saying that they're not going to. I'm just saying that, yeah, there's expectations. When you have $35 million in cap space and there's only 8 teams with cap space and you're the only one of them that's a legitimate playoff contender, you probably should be able to land somebody, and not just anybody, and not just spending because it's the right pick, it's the right player, because you have needs that you still have not been able to fill. That's it. So it's interesting. Like, we can talk about like the 24th pick, Olivier Maxence Prosper. That's the guy that we keep talking about. It's the long athletic wing. And I'm not saying they made a mistake. What I'm saying is, like, that's what you need. You have to go get that guy if you're going to compete in the Western Conference. You're going to be able to stop some of these incredible players that you're running up against in the first round, the second round, the third round of the playoffs. Like, this should be about competing for a championship if you can get up, if you're the third seed in the West. And that's where expectations change.
But is it fair to say you probably want Max Prosper 4 years from now or 3 years
Of
from now?
course. Of course. And he could be 2 years away from 2 years away his entire career. So that's, my point is, though, you got to find those guys. That's it. Like, you have to, like, and they've got to be, better than what you have in Kessler Edwards. And that's not a knock on Kessler. It's just that if Kessler's fine, if you're a 30-win team, he's not okay right now. Maybe he develops, but right now as a player, he's not a guy that plays substantial minutes on 48 or 52 or a 55-win team. That's just being honest.
Yeah, and I don't think that say you bring back Harrison Barnes. I don't think it's going to be hard to find somebody that much better than Kessler Edwards for that role. Like I said, I want Dylan Brooks there. You think Dylan Brooks, if we say Dylan Brooks, you're not starting, he'll go to Houston.
Yeah, I think he goes somewhere else.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think he'd probably go to a bad team.
Yeah,
that's possible.
Torian Prince, I would love to have him. I think he'd be good. We just talked about him. But if you go to Torian and he's like, I'm not starting here, I can go to Indiana and I'll be the starting small forward. Probably going to go to Indiana.
Yeah, but isn't that the issue that, like, you have with some players? Like, if you're Dylan Brooks and you're used to winning, why would you choose Houston? Because Kyle Kuzma's there and the two of you are going to team up and you're going to rule the world. Like, let's be realistic here. You're still a young team. You're still not a playoff team. Like, they can add a couple of veterans like that. They're still not a playoff team. So, like, what you want here is you want players to want to come and play for you because you put something together, that you're building something that's a winner and sustainable, and they want to be part of that sustainability. And that's why, if someone would take, 25 million or 30 million in a place like Houston over a team like Sacramento, I think it speaks volumes about who they are as a player and what the direction is that they want to be as a player. And so you got to find the right guy, and the right guy is a winner. It's not just long and athletic and can shoot the 3 ball and play defense. It's a winner mentality. And that's something that I think that the Kings are actually shopping for. And we can knock Dylan Brooks for a lot of things, but that dude's a winner. He's played on winning teams. He's a dude who puts it all out there every single game. There aren't a bunch of nights off. So, like, I wouldn't be disappointed with him. I wouldn't be disappointed with Bruce Brown We don't have to sit here and talk about like the superstars that the Kings have missed out on. I don't believe that's, like you can get a lot more run out of two really good players than potentially you could out of a guy, say like Bradley Beal. Like if you're managing your money the right way and finding the right types of players with the right personality and really the right soul as basketball players, then you can make huge strides here. Remember, it's not just Chris Webber and Vlade Divac and Mike Bibby, or it's Doug Christie, it's Bobby Jackson, it's Scott Pollard. Those are the players that, as of right now, you need more of.
I knew you wouldn't be able to stay away. I just knew we were going to get sombrero ham here at some point. What's the rest of your day look like, James?
Okay, so I just did a sushi making class, which was spectacular.
That's awesome.
The rest of the day is probably going to be with a drink in my hand. I know we have dinner reservations tonight. Someone decided to do construction above us. If you hear that, hopefully the hat is helping dampen the noise. But I'll probably be laying out by the beach most of the day today. I think we have a massage on the beach tomorrow.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm living the high life here, man. It's good stuff.
Put some sunscreen on, Ham. We worry about you out there, but we worry about you out there. Hey, thanks for. I'm assuming Mrs. Ham, attorney at law, like went for a walk or was like, go do whatever you want, James. James, you got 20 minutes. I'm leaving. I'm gonna go do something else. If you want to do something, you could do it, but this is it.
Yeah. She's down by the pool. She's down by the pool
that checks
where
out.
She's been nonstop, and we have friends here with us, so we're not flying solo. We've got other friends here, and so we're just hanging out and having a good week.
Well, we've got our Twitter notifications. Our James Ham alerts are on, and we'll stay in touch the next couple of days, man. But go have fun, my friend. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Yes, sir. Enjoy yourself.
See you guys.